So we are learning that arrow functions like say hello, name, hello. Oh, we can use temporal arrow. We can say hello, donk, name. Say hello, Dan. I like my programs to speak to me. Cool, that worked. Hello, Dan. So arrow functions have lexical scope. Coffee. It's not too early for coffee. Questionably too early for Oreos. I'm not going to eat Oreo now, though. What does lexical scope mean? Lexical scope is like, what is lexical? Lexical is like lexical analysis, which happens in a compiler. And I know compiler is like, compiler, there's no compiler. JavaScript is just like run in the browser on the fly, but that's not actually true. It is actually compiled in the browser and then run immediately. So there is a compiler. There is compiler time versus run time. Regular functions are run at runtime. So by regular functions, I mean like something like function thing. And then you need curlies, and then you need like return if you want it to be exactly the same. But this just doesn't return anything anyway. Ooh, nice, prettify. So this is like run at runtime and lexical, but lexical binding means the binding part means it's talking about the scope. So everything is run, at runtime. Obviously, it's the program's running, but the scope of this function, the stuff inside the curlies, is this scope right here is going to be bound at lexical analysis time, which is in the compiler, part of the compiler time, which still is like, what? Like, what is that? What does that even mean? So what I like to do if I don't understand something is just like dive deeper until I understand it. Sorry, more coffee. So what does a compiler do? I took a compilers class like, I don't know, 12 years ago. I don't remember much about it, but I do know like some of the basics. I'm gonna get a lot of this wrong. Early disclaimer: I'm not an expert by any means on this, but what I think we can do is just like let's write a compiler. Why not? So let's say what a compiler is doing is it's like picking through, like V8 is a C++ program, right? And it runs in the browser, and it takes some JavaScript file and it's parsing through the text, and it's looking for things like var, like any of these keywords, const, let, and it knows that these words mean something special in the language we're trying to target, which is JavaScript. So also like curlies, like parens, like those mean something, and semicolons kind of. So it's parsing through this text, and it's being like, oh, this thing means something, this thing means something else, and then I'm gonna tag that with some information so that when I give that to something that's going to generate another language like C++ code or machine language or like assembly language, whatever it is, then it knows what to do with that thing. It knows how to build that other language program. So compiler really, it could be called like a translator to translate like from one language to another. So then lexical analysis is the bit where it is like looking at these keywords and it's like assigning meaning, but the meaning could be anything really. So if we're going to make our own compiler, we can like, let me think what we could do. So let's write a program. We're going to have to call this, here's our program. It's going to be some string of text. So we'll pretend this is like a like .dual file or something, and in our language that we're making up, we're going to have, hello there, nice to meet you, and then we're going to have, let's say the magic word is beans. So we got beans, and let's say the next word after beans is going to be, like beans is going to mean like, we're going to console log something. So we're going to make a compiler that compiles dual language to JavaScript, and in this compiler, we're going to say beans is console log, and it's going to say hello, and then things, stuff, beans, world. So what we want this to output is hello world. I don't know why I use backticks, but okay. So this is going to say, our program is going to say beans is the important thing. So what a compiler typically has is like some tokens, and tokens are like the things that it finds important. So we're going to say beans is important. And then, so first what we need to do is parse through the text and find the beans, and then assign some meaning to that, and then generate our function. So we need like parser is going to be something, and then some like generator. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to have to eval this because it's going to be a string. Eval you should never use, but you know, unless you're making your own compiler, obviously, then you definitely want eval. We're going to generate based off the result of the parser, and we're going to pass in the program. Did I get that right? I think this is what we want to do. So we want to parse the program. The output of the parsing goes into the generator generates a program. We eval that out, and what that should do, this is leftovers from something else. So what this should do at the end of the day, when node_mon picks it up, is it should log hello world. Okay. So how do we do this? Let's see. We need to search for the string for some tokens. So so all the if we're talking about tokens as just words, that this is gonna be the dumbest, most simple compiler in the world. But you know, whatever. It's our compiler. We can do what we want. Don't let anybody tell you you can't make a program that does whatever you want. Tokens. So all the tokens are gonna be program is a string. We can split on a space, which works for us, not taking into account any edge cases here. So now we have a bunch of tokens. We're going to go through the tokens, and what we actually want is we want some data structure. Let's look at what our data structure wants to be like. So we're going to make, to assign meaning to beans, we want to identify it, right? So these tokens that are meaningful, I think, need a type, especially if we're going to extend this later. So type, we're going to say, is a, for beans, it's going to be like a log thing, a logger. And then the value, or let's say the args, type is going to be like a logger. Actually, let's just call it beans type. And then the args are going to be in this case, just the one thing. Oh, args are usually an array. Let's say it's an array, but in this case, it's just going to be like beans is going to be the type. It's going to define that, and then the args is going to be this hello thing, like the next token. We'll just take the one next token. We'll call it a day. Okay, so so we want to go through our program, and what the output of parser should be is an array of these meaningful tokens. So what we're going to do is basically reduce this from a bunch of words to an array of this. So reduce sounds like the correct thing. When in doubt, reduce. I'm not sure if this will actually work, but let's give it a shot. We have an accumulator and a next when we do reduce, and so well, this is going to be an array, and if so, this is where so probably, you know, I think normally in a compiler you have like giant switch statements all over the place because you're switching on all of your tokens to see like what's meaningful and how to build stuff. So let's make a switch statement. Switch next, and case beans, case, actually, we want to actually iterate over the tokens too. I'm kind of assuming that we're going to have other tokens and other things going on here. So, like we want to be going over this, and for each one, if we find a token, you know what? Let's not try and be fancy. Let's just like pop tokens off of this until we have until we're down to nothing. You know what I mean? Pop off this list until we're down to nothing, and each time we pop, we'll check if a thing is valid or not. If it's not, we just throw everything away. We just want to throw all these other tokens away. Okay. So for that, I want to say while tokens has a length. Once the length gets to 0, that'll be false, and then we'll kick out. And pop. Wait, we want to pop off the front. What is that called? Shift. Can we check that? Can I not call this? That could be bad. Split. Hello. Yes, correct. Okay, cool. So shift is the right thing. Current token is that, and then we have our switch. Yeah, switch current if it's a. No, now I'm back to the same thing. Here's what I want. If tokens includes, again, not accounting for case or anything on this, but if the thing we're looking for is a token, we do this. We do something. Then we want the switch. Case beans, yeah, and then we want like some result. Oh, I hate using let, but you know, if you're using while loops, you're gonna need a let. Result.push, and this is where we want this new file structure thing type. Beans and args is gonna be just the next one. So we just shift off another one. Well, right? I think so. This might work. Break default. Should always have default, right? Break. All right, we're running low on time. I gotta get through this. Let's see. We got more coffee. So that should give us a result. Let's return that and see what it is. Parser program. Hey, look at that. Beans, hello, Beans world. All right. So this parsing, this is, sorry, I've been saying the scope is bound. It's actually the context is bound. Yes. Okay. This context gets bound at this time, instead of at runtime when like an event handler could be calling it and the context would be window or something like that. Or if you're in like a set timeout, then the window is calling the function of a set timeout, the callback of a set timeout, not the program. But if the set timeout callback is parsed during lex time and then the context is set to the current this, then during runtime it's going to be correct. It's going to be what you think it's going to be. Cool. So we made a parser. It works. Now we need to just generate our take that result and generate a program where we console log. So we can say here this takes tokens, meaningful tokens, and it's going to, let's see, it's going to go over each token and it's going to see if it's a beans, and if it is a beans, it's going to make it like a console log. So the output of this is actually a string of JavaScript. So this sounds like we're reducing an array of objects down to a string. So again, I'm going to default to reduce. Might not work as well as something else, but let's try it. And what next is gonna be, and this is gonna be a string. And what we're gonna say is, and I'll skip the switch here, but you probably want to switch if next equals beans. And I also realize we are not using this. Oh, we are using this to right there. If next equals beans, then we want to say we want to tack onto the string result. Oh, sorry, next is an object. We're switching on the type. And we're going to add console.log next.args is what we called it, and we probably just want to do like as not an array, so like spread, because we made this an array. Yeah, I think that works. And then why is it complaining? Expression expected. Really? That doesn't work? Huh, okay, fine, whatever. We'll log the array. And probably want a semicolon in here so that they get chained together. That might just work. Oh, don't forget to return out of your reduce. That's why it was great. That's so helpful. Hello is not defined. That's true. That is true. Hello is not defined because it's not a variable. It's a string that we want. Bah. Hey. What's our? Hey, hello world. So we made a compiler. Cool. Don't let anybody say you can't make a compiler. But yeah, the lexical binding means it's binding the context. I effed that up in the beginning. And I'm pretty much out of time. So I hope this was enjoyable for you as much as it was for me. I'm kind of getting over a cold, so excuse my voice. And now I need to finish my coffee and eat my other Oreo. If you have any questions, or actually if you want to tell me how I could have done this like 10 times better, that'd be awesome. Send me a code snippet or something. Also, I'm not sure about this NodeMon thing as like the best way to do this. There's a thing called Quokka. It's an extension, but they charge money for like the good version, but it saves you from having to write console log. Instead, you can just write the word. Like I could just assign this and then like that, and it like puts the value next to it, but it's still kind of cumbersome. If you want the good version, they cost money. So I don't know, if you guys have a better way to do evaluation on the fly like this without using a browser, I'd be really interested in what you got. All right, I'm just